Hi everyone, Azriel Knight here, and welcome to another episode of the Darkroom Night. Today I'm going to show you how to develop color film at home, and I consider this to be probably one of the easiest ways to do it. It does involve a few extra tools, and if you haven't seen my episode on how to mix a C41 color development kit, I highly recommend watching that first, as it has a lot of the tools that you're going to need today. Once you have all these tools, it's going to be easy street. I know that there's a stigma around developing color film, that it's hard somehow, but if you've developed black and white film before, in a lot of ways, developing color film is easier. But with all that being said, let's get started. First, I'm going to tell you what you're going to need, and I'll give you a little reasoning as to why. First and foremost, you are going to need a prepared C41 powder kit, and they're going to end up in 3 bottles. You've got your color developer, your Blix, and your stab, or stabilizer. Now, the reason why I choose glass is because it'll be easier to submerge the bottles into your hot water bath. What I consider to be the next most important thing on the list is a sous vide. A sous vide warms up water, and what we've got here is a flexible tub that is filled with water, and I will be submerging 2 out of the 3 bottles. That is the color developer and the Blix. And I want to warm those bottles up to 102 Fahrenheit because that is the developing temperature. Now, the reason why we don't just do this in a tub of hot water or in the sink or something like that is because you want to be able to maintain 102 Fahrenheit for most of the developing process. Next on the list, if you're not doing this by a sink, is to have a waste bucket ready. This is going to be where you pour out your pre-bath and where you pour out the water while you're doing the wash process. You're going to need a pair of scissors in order to cut the film from the canister when you're loading it into the tank. You are also, of course, going to need a developing tank. Now, if this is your first time developing any kind of film whatsoever, I highly recommend taking some time to learn how to load film onto a reel. I will be doing an episode on how to do that in the future, and I'll link it in the description below once I've done it. But for now, there are plenty of great videos out there on YouTube that will show you how to do that. But the key is to just practice with a dummy roll. You may need a can opener in order to get the film out. I personally just get my fingers right in between here and just pry it apart. It's a lot easier than it sounds. You want a measuring cup that goes up to at least 500 milliliters. Also important is a funnel to drain the chemicals back into the bottles without spilling. Even though a sous vide has its own temperature, it's going to tell you the temperature of the water bath and not the chemicals in the bottles. So you're going to want a good thermometer. I use a cooking thermometer. I find the electronic cooking thermometers are cheap and accurate. Of course, you're also going to need a timer. Your phone will do just fine. In order to protect your hands, you're going to want to use plastic gloves. I like nitrile gloves. They're durable and reusable if you wash them. They're also thick and easy to grasp onto things with your fingers. But, you know, those cheap blue ones from Walmart will do just fine as well, though they do tend to tear. You're also going to want an apron or a lab coat, or alternatively, you want clothes that you're not going to use anywhere else. The first step after getting your film into the tank is to warm up your chemicals with the sous vide to 102 Fahrenheit. Start by plugging your sous vide in. So this displays the current temperature, and this is an alternating display between the temperature that it's going to target as well as the time left that it's going to stay on for. So I usually just throw that up for however long, way longer than I need it to be. Right now it's like set at 7.5 hours, and then I just hit this button and it starts circulating the water and bringing up the temperature to 102 Fahrenheit. This process takes about I would say half an hour to 45 minutes. So this is the time you take to relax, go have a bite to eat, maybe clean up your workspace a little bit, get everything ready. So yeah, we'll see you in about half an hour 45. Alright folks, it looks like our bath is ready to go. The very first step here is going to be a pre-bath, and I'm going to use the actual bath water for my pre-bath. I just poured it straight into the tank. It's okay that it's too much, no big deal. I agitate a little bit. And then I just let that sit for about a minute. Now because I'm using my phone as a second camera, I'm going to be using this analog timer here. I have no idea how old this thing is. It's ancient though. It's probably older than I am. I want my waste bucket ready to go, and then I'm going to pour myself 300 milliliters of developer. Just a teeny bit more, just to be on the safe side. Set the bottle aside, put the funnel in it, and have the funnel ready to go. Now I'm pouring out my pre-bath, removing the agitation stick temporarily, and pouring in my developer. Give a couple wraps to get all the bubbles out, and start the timer and start agitating. Agitate for the first 10 seconds. And then at the 30-second mark. Now when we get to the 30-second mark, we're going to move this over to back to the sous vide. $30, and I'll just hold it in there. This will keep everything at 102 Fahrenheit. 1 minute. Usually 5 twists of the agitation stick is good enough for me. 1 minute 30. 2 minutes. At the 2-minute mark, you're going to want to start to think about getting your Blix ready. Placing the glass there. 2 minutes 30. Carefully pour the Blix. Again, 300 milliliters is all you need. Just a bit more, just in case. Three-minute mark. Now this sous vide is going to give me a warning bell that the water is a little too low when I pull out the color developer, but that's just the brakes. It'll freak out a bit, but it'll be fine. And quickly pour into the Blix here. Once the Blix is in, a couple quick taps. Put the bottles back in to get that water level up. Give it a quick agitation for 10 seconds. And then at the 30-second marks. Now there's about 15 seconds where it sat there, But it's fine. You're going to find your own groove where you have a little time in between, you know, when you pour it in and when you get yourself situated. 30-second mark. Now my 30-second mark is probably more like my 45-second mark, so we might pour out about 15 seconds early. 1 minute. Now the Blick stays in for 6.5 minutes, and as you've probably noticed, the developer only stays in for 3.5 minutes. That is a really quick developing time. Take the opportunity to take the funnel out and place it in the Blicks. Place the cap back on your developer. 1.5 minutes on the developing. If you don't get your agitations exactly at the 30-second mark either, no big deal. 2 minutes. This also represents the last step where you need to have the tank in the water. 2.5 minutes, which is really 2:45. Like I said before, it took me about 15 seconds to get the Blicks into the tank and get everything situated. So I'm going to be pulling it out 15 seconds early. Coming up on 3 minutes now. And 3.5 minutes. At about 5 minutes, I'm going to cut the power to the sous vide. We're at 4 minutes now. We are now at 5 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the power to the sous vide. I can take this bottle out without any warning bells. And I'm going to get the Blicks bottle ready to pour the chemicals back in about a minute here. 5.5 minutes. While the developer needs to be at 102, the Blicks can actually be anywhere between 95 and 105, though you want to err on the side of more than 100. The temperature is not going to drop that much in a minute. We're now at 6 minutes. And at about 6:15, 6:20, I'm going to pour out the Blicks. And then I'm going to start using the bath water to actually wash out the Blicks. Now the instructions say to wash for 3.5 minutes under constant pressure, but I find that using the bath water uses less water and is just as good. Here's my method. I do a quick wash here, and I'm going to show you the water that comes out. You can see there's quite a bit of Blicks in that first go. Then into the waste bucket. And I will just repeat this process until the water is clear. Usually the first one's orange, and it gets a little pink. Once it's barely pink or clear, we are done. Now this process has been a little bit messy, but that's because I'm trying to work around 2 cameras at the moment. Reaching around cameras, making sure they're both going. that sort of thing, as well as develop the film at the same time. Normally, things go a lot smoother for me, but as you can see, there's some water on the table, a few drops of chemicals here and there. Once things start getting pretty clear, what I'll do is I'll put the lid on, shake the devil out of it, pour out, see if that dislodges anything. Things are pretty clear here, but my waste bucket is almost full, so I'm going to fill up my tank one more time and then take the opportunity to empty my waste bucket. Once things are looking pretty clear, I'll be more vigorous with my agitation. Take the sous vide out, drop that aside. Give me more room to scoop water out. That is looking pretty clear. I'm going to do a couple more just for good measure. Last time I developed color, it was a little milky, and that's usually because the fixer hasn't been completely washed off. So I definitely don't want to underdo it. You can always err on the side of overdoing it. The other thing I like to do is to let the water just sit with it for a couple of minutes. Sometimes that helps gather up excess chemicals instead of just pouring in and pouring out. One thing you can do while you're letting your film sit in some water is just get everything cleaned up, especially with the mess I made. Normally I put a towel down. I didn't this time because I have a tripod here and it'd be all wibbly wobbly. Shake the devil out of it, see what we got. A little bit pink, I don't know if you can tell on there. And that should be the last wash that I need to do on that. Now I can pour in my stabilizer. I don't recommend shaking like you've seen me do if there's a medium format roll. It tends to go off track if you do, but 35mm will stay in place. Now the stabilizer only needs to go in for 30 seconds to a minute. Bring my timer back. There we go, it's been about a minute. Give it a good shake, get as much of that chemicals out of there as possible. There we go. Film is ready. Just like that, your film is developed. Now the next thing you want to do is hang up your film to dry. You definitely don't need anything fancy like this, but it sure helps. As long as it's somewhere relatively away from dust, you should be fine. Lots of people like to put it in the shower and then turn the shower on hot to get the humidity going and pull the dust out of the air. But that's basically it. Well, that wraps up another episode. I really hope you enjoyed this exploration into developing color film at home. I know some of you have developed black and white for a while and you've never taken the deep dive into color. I hope this makes it seem less scary for you. The other important thing to remember, really important, is that everybody develops film slightly different. My methods might seem a little bit odd to some of you, and I'm sure a few of you will correct me in my processes in the comments below, and that's fine. I enjoy feedback. I'm always switching up my workflow, and I'm open to new ideas. If I change my workflow enough, maybe I'll make another one of these videos in the future. But if you've never developed color film before, this guide will definitely get you started and will produce beautiful results. I guarantee it. The important part is to sort of start somewhere. If you're just waiting to get it perfect the first time, you're never going to get started. So just start somewhere. Just start by getting an image, and then try and get a better image, and then try and get a cleaner negative, and so on. It's a process. It's an ongoing process. But yeah, that's all for now. If you like what I do around here, perhaps you'll consider joining me on Patreon. On my Patreon, you'll get things like early access and your name in the credits, as well as free prints. Also, starting at $1, you'll get access to my Discord. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and until next time, stay classic.